Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you're joining us today in today's live lecture coming to you from Nkolo Mahadum Wisdom University. Today's date is our market day in the Igbo lunar calendar, and 9/16/2025 in the foreign Roman Catholic calendar. The reason we are giving you both calendars is for you to know that we have our own calendar before the arrival of the colonial masters. And remember, at Nkolo Mahadum, we always advise you to use your naturally given common sense, which we call akonuche in Igbo language. And we are primarily set up to decolonize your mind, provide you the correct information instead of the miseducation, misinformation, and misdirection from our colonial masters and their institutions and stooges in our land. And we always encourage you to like, comment, and share, and join, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. And now we are live on Facebook, we are live on YouTube, we are live on Twitter, and we are live on TikTok. So join us in this lecture. The title of today's lecture is Comparing the Biafran and Palestinian Genocide. Comparing the Biafran and Palestinian Genocide. Which one is more devastating? Of everything you are seeing now going on in Gaza, Palestine, it's a nothing. It's Owen Kufu. Owen Kufu. It's nothing compared to what happened during the Nigerian Biafran War. And we want to let you know that the Nigerian Biafran War can be traced from the 1884 to 1885 Berlin Conference that divided Africa for the Europeans, and Britain got Nigeria. And in 1914, amalgamated the northern and southern part of Nigeria as one country. And since the formation of the country have not been a nation. And then as they were having all kinds of problems, including corruption, religious interferences, and others, because you have different value system there. The North have different value system, the East have different value system, and the West have different value system. And then the Nigerian Biafran War actually started from July 6th, 1967, and ended January 15, 1970. And the events that led to the war included all the political tussles, all the political commotions in Western Nigeria, all the corruption, all the inability for leaders to agree, that led to the January 1966 coup led by Nzogu, of which that coup, they say, is an Igbo coup, but it was a coup organized by Nigerians to make Nigeria better. Then soon after that, there was the one they call Igbo program. The Igbo program also started from May 1966, and about 30,000 Igbos were killed. Soon after that, you have the retaliatory coup, the second coup, which took place July 28, 1966, led by Murtala Mohammed, which was the bloodiest coup in Nigeria. When it is the bloodiest coup, it means many Igbos were massacred, both those in the military and those as civilians. And then all these killings, Ojukwu and Gowon then went to Aburi, the Aburi conference in Ghana from January 4th and 5th, 1967, where they agreed on restructuring, where they agreed on regionalism. And then when they came back, Gowon refused to implement the agreement that eventually led to the war, the Nigerian Biafran War. That was what eventually led to the war. And then for the Palestinian people were living in their land. And then after the First World War and Second World War, actually after the First World War, that was when, before the First World War could end, that was when Britain was speculating of establishing the state of Israel on the land of the Palestinian people. Then after the Second World War that ended in 1945, there was a UN resolution of 181, which passed in 1947, which created the state of Israel on the land of Palestinian people, dividing the land of the Palestinian people into two, one for the Israeli settlers and the other one for the Arabs. And that was how the state of Israel was established on the land of the Palestinian people. And since that time, there had been wars going on up to today. There have been a lot of wars going on up till today. But the current war started on October 7, 2023, when some Hamas freedom fighters went into Israel and killed about 120 people, according to the Israeli government. According to the Israeli government, that the intrusion, the going into by force by Hamas fighters into Israel and killing 1,200 people, this is the figure that was being mentioned by the Israeli government, according to the Times of Israel. Credit for this information goes to the Times of Israel. And so this war has been raging up till today. And many people are calling it genocide. Even a UN agency called it genocide. So people are saying that it's genocide. But when you compare it with the Biafran genocide, no international organization is actually calling the Biafran genocide genocide. But in the case of the Palestinian, the one going on in Gaza right now, many are calling it genocide, which is nothing compared to all the things that the Nigerian government and their supporters did during the Biafran war to the Biafran people. And both the Biafran war, both the Nigerian Biafran war and the current Israeli-Palestinian war in Gaza, they are both world wars. You see, we Africans, we cannot be waiting for somebody else to tell you what is world war and what is not world war. They are both world wars, because during the Nigerian Biafran war, Biafra was supported by France, Gabon, Ivory Coast, and few other countries, while Nigeria was supported by Britain, Russia, United States, many African and Arab countries. So what else are you going to call it? It's a world war that occurred during that period between Nigeria and Biafra between 1967 and 1970. And then in the current Gaza, Palestinian-Israeli war, it's also a world war, because as you can see, many Arab nations are supporting the Palestinian people, like Iran, like Yemen, and so many others hiding under. They are supporting them. While the United States, Britain, Italy, Germany, many other Western countries are supporting Israel. So it's a world war. So both wars are world wars. But the Biafran war is more devastating. It's very much devastating than the Israeli-Gaza war currently going on. In both wars, they are bombing mercilessly. In the Biafran war, hospitals, refugee camps, villages, towns, houses were bombed and destroyed. Just as you are seeing the destruction in Gaza, almost similar. But in the case of the Biafran war, international attention was not much focused on that war, like they are focused now on this Gaza-Israeli war. There was no much attention. And so many hospitals, so many refugee camps, so many villages, towns, cities, markets, houses were bombed with a lot of killings. People were killed in thousands. Both wars, both genocidal wars also have blockade. In the case of the Nigerian Biafran war, the Biafran territory was blockaded in the sea. Nothing was coming in. Only few relief flights were allowed to bring in food for the people. As you can see what is going on in Gaza, in Palestine right now, a lot of people are bringing food through the ship and flights. But it wasn't like that during the Nigerian Biafran war. Nothing was coming in. There was starvation. Children can't see anything to eat. There was what we call kwashiorkor. A lot of children were dying out of hunger. Even adults. People were emaciated. People lost weight. People were suffering. And we are eating different types of food. We ate a lot of things during that Nigerian Biafran war due to the blockade. People were eating lizards. People were eating snakes. People were eating frogs. People were eating different kinds of ants just to survive as a result of the blockade. The blockade in Biafran territory in the Nigerian Biafran war is not comparable. It's not comparable to what is going on in Gaza right now. And why we are using this Gaza as comparison is for you to know that whatever you are seeing right now in Gaza, what happened in Biafra is 100 times more than what is going on in Gaza right now. What happened during the Biafran war, what the genocide committed by the Nigerian government and their supporters in the Biafran war is 100 times more than what you are seeing today happening in Gaza. That's what we want you to know. And also, there were killings of innocent civilians. Benjamin Adekunle, a Yoruba commander, was quoted as saying, they shoot on anything that moves and things that doesn't move, which means they shoot anything that they see, both animals, both human beings. They did not follow the International War Convention. It was not followed. They were shooting on everything that they see. And this information is credited to the New York Times. New York Times of 1968 was the one that quoted Benjamin Adekunle, a Yoruba commander, who was saying that they shoot at anything that moves and things that doesn't move. That will tell you how they were recklessly killing the Biafran people during that Nigerian Biafran war. And federal troops killed or stood by while mobs killed more than 5,000 Igbos in Warri. This is New York Times. New York Times is the one that is making this assertion that the Nigerian federal government killed or stood aside and watched mobs kill more than 5,000 Igbos in Warri, and another 1,000 to 2,000 Igbos killed in Calabar, and 300,000 children were killed. Credit goes to Frederick Forsyth. Frederick Forsyth is a British writer, and this was recorded on January 21st, 1969. Frederick Forsyth witnessed about 300,000 killed. Are you talking about the elderly? Are you talking about the sick? And the highest massacre occurred when 700 males were lined up and shot in Asaba. In Asaba, 700 males were lined up and shot in Asaba. So if you calculate all the killings from the Igbo pogrom of May 1966 to the retaliatory coup of 1960, July 1966, to the Civil War. Come on. What Biafrans lost in that genocidal war, if we have to have the correct number, it will be between 5 to 10 million people that we are killed, because always they are killing people in thousands. They were massacring people in thousands. And that is why we think we shall bring this type of lecture for you today, for you to know that whatever you're hearing, you are seeing happening in Gaza today, that many people across the world are calling genocide, that is nothing compared to what happened in the Nigerian Biafran war. And painstakingly, painfully, no international organization, the UN, have not regarded the Biafran genocide as a genocide. That is the most annoying part of it. But they are here calling these things going on in Gaza today as genocide. That is injustice. That is to show you that the world is a world of injustice. And before we continue, we have to beg you again to please subscribe, join us, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. And go back to our previous lectures and you will not regret that you did. And so what we are saying is that we are trying to compare the Biafran and Palestinian genocide, and we are asking you which one is more devastating. And from what we have seen, the Biafran genocide is much, much devastating than what is currently going on in Gaza. And none of the international community, UN, have not classified it as genocide. Are we going to say they are complicit? Are we going to say that they supported the genocide, the killings? It may mean so. If after about how many years now, from 1970 to today, about almost 75 years or something, nothing had been done. Nothing had been done by the UN. And we are trying to tell you that the genesis, the root cause of the Biafran genocide, the Nigerian Biafran genocide, is the 1884 to 1885 balkanization of Africa by Europeans in Berlin, Germany. Because that was where Britain got that geographical area as their own. And in 1914, they amalgamated, they put the North and the South together as one country. Different people with different value system together. And there we have been having problems since that time up to today. And in order to solve that problem, some officers of the Nigerian army decided to stage a coup from 15 January 1966, which was led by Nzogu, to sanitize the system, to make Nigeria workable, to kill the corrupt leaders. And after that coup, it was branded an Igbo coup. And when it was branded an Igbo coup, that was what they call the Igbo program, which means killing of Igbos anywhere you see them, both those in the military and those in the civilian. And at the end of that program, they say about 30,000 people were killed. And soon after that, there was the second counter coup led by Murtala Mohammed, which was the bloodiest in Nigeria. And that coup killed a lot of Igbo officers, killed a lot of Igbo civilians. And then there was this Aburi conference between Gowon and General Ojukwu. That conference took place between January 4th and 5th, 1967. And at Aburi, Ghana, they agreed on regionalism, restructuring. Whatever they are fighting today, restructuring, regionalizing, it was agreed in the Aburi conference. But when they came back, Gowon failed to implement it and rather decided to go to war to kill the Igbos more. And that was what led to this Nigerian Biafran War, which was fought between July 6th, 1967 and ended 15 January 1970. These are facts. And for the Palestinians, we made it clear to you that after the First World War, that was when the Britain, before the First World War could end in 1917, that was when the Balfour Declaration that was talking about setting up the state of Israel in the land of the Palestinian people. Then after the Second World War, there was a resolution 181, that was passed in 1947, that actually created the state of Israel on the land of the Palestinian people. Israel on one side, the Palestinian people on the other side. And since that time, they have been fighting and fighting and fighting up to today. And the current war was on October 7, 2023, when Hamas fighters crossed over to Israel and killed about 1,200 people, according to the Israeli government. And the credit for this information goes to the Times of Israel. And since then, you have seen all the devastation, all the killings, all the starvation, all the bombings going on in Gaza. And the world is calling it genocide. And even a UN agency the other day called it genocide. But the Biafran genocide was never called by UN as genocide. This is the world we live in. And so we're trying to let you know that both wars are world wars. We Africans have to start to define things on our own. We cannot be following the the colonial definition of events. We have to come up with our own definition. They are both world wars, because the Biafrans at that time were being supported by France, Gabon, Ivory Coast, and few other countries, while Nigeria was being supported by Britain, Russia, United States, many African and Arab countries. They were all supporting Nigeria. In fact, Egyptians were the one flying many of the fighter jets for the Nigerian government. And so they are both world wars. In both wars, bombs were used mercilessly. They were bombing everywhere. In the Biafran territory, they were bombing both the hospitals, both the refugee camps, both the villages, both the towns and cities, both the markets, both the houses of people. Everything was destroyed in the Biafran territory. They did not follow the rule of engagement. International rule of engagement was not followed. And also, there was blockade. The Biafran land was blockaded. There's nothing coming on through the sea. They were blockaded with only few flights coming in. Only few flights, relief flights coming in. But everything was blockaded. That is why there was no food. And we were eating different things. Some people were eating ants, some people were eating frogs, some people were eating rice, snakes, some people were eating grasshoppers, and so many other things we ate to survive in that war because of the blockade. There was kwashiorkor. Our children don't have enough sufficient nutrients, and they were dying in numbers. And in both wars, there were senseless killing of civilians. As Benjamin Adekunle, a Yoruba commander, stated that they shoot both moving and non-moving things. They kill anything that comes their way, mercilessly. According to the New York Times of 10th January 1968. And then another report have it that the federal troops killed or stood by while mobs killed more than 5,000 Igbos in Warri. 5,000. This report also by New York Times and also Frederick Forsyth have it that 300,000 children, 300,000 children. This is the one on record. How about the one that's not on record? About 300,000 children were killed in that war. And then New York Times of January 21st, 1969, have it that 1,000 to 2,000 Igbos were killed in Calabar. So if you factor in all the killings that occurred from the Igbo program to the counter-coup to the Civil War, both children, elderly, and people massacred during that war is between 7 to 10 million. If you put all the records straight, because a lot of people were actually killed or starved to death during the Biafran war. You see what is going on in Gaza? People are begging, at least they're getting something. You see people bringing ships to bring food, some flights coming in, some food coming in through Egypt, and so on. They have help. But in the Biafran situation, in the Biafran genocide, there was little or no help. There was little or no help. And most annoyingly is that the United Nations never recognized the Biafran genocide as a genocide. They never recognized it. And also, they are now talking about recognizing the Gaza genocide, the Gaza-Palestinian genocide as a genocide. Isn't that injustice? How do you see it? So the Biafran genocide was more devastating than what you are seeing today happening in Gaza. That is why I want to bring this lecture to you, for you to know that whatever you're seeing in Gaza today, the Biafran genocide is 100 times more than what you are seeing in Gaza. And the world should rise up and call it what it is, because it is genocide and nothing else. And the perpetrators, whether they are alive or dead, should be prosecuted for war crimes against humanity. And with this, we shall bring you to this lecture. And thank you very much for joining me, and have a very, very good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.